Welcome, everybody, to Survive and Advance on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Survive and Advance is brought to you by MyBookie.ag. Make sure you go to the banner at the top of thegruelingtruth.com. Click on the MyBookie.ag banner for 100% first deposit bonus now by punching in the code TGT100. Up to $300, so if you put $300 in, you'll have $600 to play with right away. And I am your co-host for Survive and Advance, Mike Goodpaster. And I'd like to welcome in my other co-host, 1981 national champion, 1979 NIT champion, but he still lost to Aurora, a really small school with nobody above 4 feet tall in 1977. Help me welcome to the show, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing great, Mike. Good. Thanks for the great introduction.
You're
doing good to the last part. It was
great. I mean, in Aurora, Indiana, it's still great.
Yeah. Yeah, no, see, glory days. Fixing said.
That's all they got, just like Milan's only got 1954. All right, today we're going to talk NFL draft. We're going to look at the defensive side of the ball today. We looked at the offensive side yesterday, which you can find on thegruelingtruth.com if you want to hear that. And as always, we welcome in from the FF Faceoff, Anthony Cervino. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing fine, guys. How are you?
All right, and let's just go ahead. Let's get into this. We're going to start at defensive tackle because I think this is the deepest position in this draft, maybe the deepest defensive tackle's ever been. And when I look at this, Anthony, who's your number one guy?
My number one prospect is Quinnen Williams.
Yeah, I think everybody agrees with that.
Yeah.
I think Quinnen Williams could be, and this may be crazy, but I think he could be better than Aaron Donald.
That is big shoes to fill, considering Aaron Donald might, to some is the best player in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think that Quinnen Williams, when you look at him, there is nothing he doesn't have. I mean, he's got speed, power, athleticism, freaky upside, plays with great leverage. He reminds me of Aaron Donald.
I'm seeing in different mock drafts that Williams could potentially fall if he's not scooped up in the first 3 picks.
Well, and that's because, as we've explained before, NFL teams have a tendency to be stupid with this stuff. I mean, I think when I look at him, he's the best player in this draft, Anthony.
Overall?
Yeah, I think he is the safest pick. I think he's the best player in the draft, and I think anybody that passes on him, including Arizona, is missing the boat, because when we look at Aaron Donald, I mean, look at the effect Aaron Donald has on his overall team just by controlling the line of scrimmage on the defensive side of the ball. So when you look at that,
yeah.
I think there's no doubt, Steve, that this guy's the best player, unless you disagree.
No, not at all. I mean, he's fast off the snap, and he fires into the gaps real quick. He gets to the quarterback in a hurry. I mean, he blows by offensive linemen. And I think it's amazing that you have a defensive tackle, 6'3", 303 pounds, that can run a 4.8, 340. That's pretty amazing. And you 10 yards in 1.57 seconds. And he's a guy 303 pounds, a vertical jump of 30 inches. I mean, this guy's a freak.
Yeah, and the thing that stands out to me is this, Steve. If you piss him off, you got to fight him because you can't outrun him.
He's also very versatile. He could play anywhere in the interior defensive line.
Oh, I think he could play defensive end if he had to.
Yeah, occasional 5 technique. He gets off the ball really quick, and he can also defend the run.
Well, see, and the thing is this, there's only a couple guys that can play D-tackle and play D-end productively, guys like Donald, Geno Atkins. This guy is very rare, and I think that people that may think that it would be better to go with even a Bosa over him are going to be real wrong. Next up, another guy that's interesting to me, which I've heard, and you always hear all kind of rumors, and they're usually BS anyways, but Ed Oliver from Houston. What's your take on Ed Oliver, Anthony?
I like Ed Oliver, really good at the run defense, explosive off the ball and active hands in the pass rush. I think he is probably my Yeah, my number 2 behind Quinnen Williams.
All right, Steve, what's your take on Oliver?
Yeah, I agree. He's kind of built for a defensive tackle. He's only 6'1", but he's 287 pounds.
He runs a 4.7 40, Steve.
4, yeah, that's amazing. That the best I could ever do was 4'9". And this guy here at 87 pounds, is that what he is? He has a vertical of 36 inches. And it's amazing how athletic these guys have gotten. But the thing about Ed Oliver is that he was able to perform well, usually being double or triple teamed even. They would just put 2 or 3 guys trying to stop him, and he was still able to get through. He had 54 tackles with 14.5 tackles for a loss. The guy's just a beast. So there's another great player right there from Houston.
Yeah, and when I look at him, you talk about the double and triple teams. I mean, his ability to get skinny in the hole, to attack one guy's pad level, turn and get upfield, I think is unparalleled here, even more than Donald, or not Donald. See, I even call him Donald now, but Williams. So I think Ed Oliver, and there's some mocks, Anthony, that actually have the Jets taking him at number 3 now. Do you think that that's crazy, or do you think that's something that could happen?
I don't think it's crazy. I think it's more crazy if the Jets pass on Quinnen Williams, and I could see Oakland possibly targeting Ed Oliver at 4.
Yeah, it's hard telling what Oakland will do.
Who else? I think they're going DK Metcalf.
It would not surprise me. And if they do, that will prove John Gruden's never going to work out there.
Is there any chance that the Raiders are crazy enough to take a running back at 4 with Marshawn Lynch likely retiring? Because he announced today, Lynch had said he's out, basically.
Yeah, but I would think this. I would think that if you're them, you can get a quality running back with the 24th pick. You could probably get the best running back in the draft with the 24th pick.
Absolutely, but it's the Raiders.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Who knows what they'll do. Go ahead, Steve.
The question is you guys know, he's only 6'1". Is that an advantage? Most of your offensive linemen now are 6'4", 6'5". I mean, is a shorter guy hard to block?
I don't think as a defensive tackle, I don't really think 6'1's that short. I'm a Bengals fan who watched Geno Atkins terrorize guys at 5'11". Now, I think the one thing it does, I think it actually gives you somewhat of an advantage because low man wins. The guy that gets the leverage on the defensive line is usually the guy that wins this battle. And if you're 3 inches shorter, you got a better chance to get leverage, Anthony.
Right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right, now
you've got probably lower center of gravity.
He does well. They say Ed Oliver has really tremendous leverage skills to make up for his size.
Yeah, and the guy that stands out to me here is Jeffrey Simons from Mississippi State, because I think he's a guy that could have been drafted in the top half of the first round. Definitely, I think he's top 10, top 15 talent, but he suffered, an ACL injury. And when you look at this, somebody's going to get Simons in the second or the third round, and he's going to be the steal of the draft because once he's healthy, and the thing is this, could you imagine a team like the Patriots taking him at the end of the first or the Rams taking him in the second round, and then all of a sudden he's ready to go in December?
Yeah. Is this a player who can fall because he had a 2016 assault incident?
It doesn't seem to hurt anybody coming into draft. I mean, obviously, what you just told me tells me the Bengals are probably going to draft him. And I would be fine with that in the second or third round. It was also 2016. So, I mean, by now, he struck a woman with multiple punches in a street fight. So I would say this. Either way, I don't think it's going to affect him because he's so good, and I don't think he's going to drop too far because of how much talent he has. But I would think your Dallas Cowboys or my Cincinnati Bengals are in line to pick him in the second or third round.
And both of those teams can use him.
Well, yeah, because both of those teams can always use another guy that'll beat up a woman because they have a bunch anyways, so they can have like a opposite of a Me Too group on the team. What? Yeah, so
No,
I'm telling you this. Jeffrey Simons is a stud. He has baggage, but he's so good, somebody's going to pick him. I mean,
he has a first-round draft grade, and before I saw this incident, I kind of had him pegged to New England at 32 or early in the second. But I don't know if that's going to skew Belichick away, because I know Belichick will give some of the problem childs a chance. I just don't know if he gives a chance to somebody with some kind of assault.
Yeah.
Has he done anything since 2016?
No, not that I've seen.
No. But the thing is this, and we haven't seen this much, and my guess is we'll see it over the next 24 hours, but there is a video of this incident, and I think this is similar from what I've read to like the Bengals with Joe Mixon, where it's a few years ago, so people, or, hell, the Chiefs didn't have a problem drafting guys like this. So, hell, he could be a Kansas City Chief before this is done. So somebody's going to pick him. They're going to get a hell of a player as long as he stays out of trouble. Now, let me do this. This is a guy that I like because I watched him be dominant at Notre Dame, Steve. And that's Jerry Tillery. Yeah. Either one of you got a take on Jerry Tillery?
6'6", 295. Kind of slow in the 40 at 4.93 compared to some of the other guys. Good 10-yard speed. Vertical of 32. Guy's an athlete. Notre Dame players are generally well-disciplined, and they keep their noses clean for the most part.
Yeah, but he doesn't. I mean, there are serious character concerns with this guy. And
he screams Ndamukong Suh.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But he also screams this. Ndamukong Suh is not a bad player if you were the team that drafted him and you drafted him in the third round, Anthony.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean is this.
If
Ndamukong Suh is a pain in the ass, and he's probably not been worth the money because of his character issues. But if he'd have been a third-round pick and you were paying him like $25 million less a year, he would have been easier to deal with.
Oh, yeah. And, on Tillery, he has a second-round draft grade. He has first-round upside. He could be a player that slips a little bit into the third.
Yeah. So when I look at that, go ahead.
After reading the dossier on him, yeah, this guy's a bad hombre.
Well, Notre Dame hired Brian Kelly for a reason, so.
Yeah,
that was to downgrade the character of the squad.
I hadn't read the dossier on him. I was just going off of statistics and things like that. But, yeah, I mean, this is a guy that's looking after reading the dossier on him here on the website.
The dossier? What was this, police squad? I keep waiting for Leslie Nielsen to come out and say, hey, I got the dossier on that kid.
Don't worry, we're all counting on you. The thing about him then is I think that by reading this, I think he's going to go in the third round. I mean, he's probably a talented football player, but what I would say, based on what I'm reading here, this guy's unreliable. Failing tests, just constantly badgering. I don't think teams are going to risk a first or second round pick on this guy. I think he'll be around in the third round, if not later.
Yeah, and he'll probably be a steal for somebody if they could keep him in a handcuffs.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's kind of the same like Randy Gregory. Randy Gregory at Dallas is kind of the same way. He's a talented player, but you can't rely on him. He's always doing something stupid.
The big knock on him is his block recognition consistency. And is that something that can be taught at the next level?
I would say this. If he could not do block recognition at the college level, the NFL level is going to be even that much more difficult because, number one, he's got a lot better player in front of him. And number two, he played at Notre Dame. And Notre Dame plays a lot of schools that just kind of run the ball. And I think the block recognition for him is, when you talk about block recognition, are you saying he's reading a block coming at him when there's a run play? or are you talking block recognition where he has a hard time distinguishing immediately between a pass play and a run play?
From what I can see, they're saying that it's recognizing the run play and shedding the block.
Yeah, and the problem with that is this. At the NFL level, I mean, when he was at Notre Dame, that should have been much easier to do because there's not too many times where he was facing an NFL quality lineman. So now what you're going to have is he's got to figure out block recognition while he has a guy that's going to get to him a full second sooner and is going to be on him immediately. So that read has got to be even that much quicker. So if that's a problem with him, then I don't think he will work out very well.
Here's a question, guys. He's 6'6" and 295. So is this a guy that probably plays more on athleticism than on skill?
But it has to be. If he cannot read a block, he can't really play it on skill because without my guess is this, and when you watch his film, that what you say makes sense, Anthony, because he is a guy that 9 times out of 10 is basically bull rushing, if you know what I mean. He's putting his head down and he's trying to penetrate because he doesn't know what the hell's going on. So he's just trying to get back there and figure out what's going on instead of the ball being snapped, being able to read it, react to it, and use his hands to get to where he needs to be. So I hadn't read that about him, but I know what I wrote down about him was the fact that he didn't really use his hands that well, and he was mainly a bull rusher. So what you got is he's going to have to figure out block recognition, and he's also going to have to come up with 2 moves because right now he's just got a bull rush. I mean, and yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that's the difference between a third-round grade, a second-round grade, and a first-round grade. Are these little traits that they either pick up or they don't pick up.
Well, and that's coaching, which would lead me to question Notre Dame's ability to coach, or at least their ability to get him to do what he's supposed to do. I mean, because they've had him for 4 years, and he still can't do this. Notre Dame's a D1 program that was in the college playoffs last year. So to me, to have a guy like that is inexcusable. That means they let him skate by. They let him basically be an asshole from what we hear. But they were willing to let that go to play. And I think right there, Jerry Tillery is an indictment of Brian Kelly and what he's been doing at Notre Dame, Steve. Especially when you see how he doesn't do his schoolwork.
Yeah, failing tests. Yeah. I don't think any team in the NFL is going to be willing to take a risk on him above the third round.
Yeah, they might take him in the third.
And you're right.
And,
if they can control him, say this is a guy that might want to go to New England, because Belichick can handle him.
No, he can't, because this is the thing, though. Belichick's going to teach him going to have to teach him how to do all this stuff. And when you get to a professional level at the NFL, you don't expect to have to teach guys to read a block. They should already have a basic foundation of how to do that, and then you just add to what they know. I mean, you don't want to draft a guy, pay him a bunch of money, and then have to teach him everything like he's freaking 14 years old. He's not that good, put it like that.
Okay. All right, that's fine.
All right, let's go to
I'm a Notre Dame fan, so I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but that's a bad dossier on this.
Well,
guy.
I can tell you, I always liked Notre Dame, and as you say, a dossier like that, to me, is not what Notre Dame's about, and it makes you question why Jerry Tillery played that long for Notre Dame. Let's move ahead.
In your words, it's 2 words. There's 2-word answer to that.
What?
What am I going to say? Brian Kelly.
Yeah. And actually,
there's your answer to that.
Ever since Dan Devine, the answer has always been to two names of the coach, because that's why I'm not a Notre Dame fan. They've gotten away from what they were supposed to be. All right, let's go to linebacker, give me your best linebacker in this draft. Just linebacker, not edge rusher, Anthony.
To me, there's really only 2 guys, and it's either Devin White or Devin Bush. I slightly give an edge to Devin White out of LSU. Really good in coverage, aggressive tackler, plays through the blocks. physicality, high motor. I think he has the potential to be a top 10 pick. I think if he slides to your Bengals, he would be a good fit because they need a linebacker to replace Vontaze Burfict.
Well, I can tell you this. I would rather have Devin Bush. I mean, when I see Devin White, the thing that sticks out to me is I don't think he has good instincts. I don't think he can read what's going on in front of him. I think that he is a great athlete. I think he looks a little like Roquan Smith to me, only I don't think he's as smart as Smith. So White to me is a dude that runs around and kills everything that moves, but misdirection plays are a problem for him, which tells me he's not really reading what's in front of him. That's my question.
He'll take himself out of the play.
Yeah, he takes himself out of the play. And I don't really want a guy like that if I'm coaching the defense. I mean, I love the fact that he's mean as hell and he flies to the ball. But I think if he goes to the right team, he could be all right. I think it's a serious risk drafting a guy like this in the top 10, where to me, with Devin Bush, you know, he's kind of like his dad was. His dad was a hell of a football player, too. But the thing about Bush, and the reason I said I would rather take Bush, he's slightly smaller, but not enough to make that big of a difference. But when I see him, I see an instinctive, rangy inside linebacker who also brings value on third downs and coverage, and also as a blitzer. They'll need to cover him up a little bit due to his lack of size. But when I see Bush, I see a guy that is more NFL ready right now than what Devin White is.
You know, he's a big thing I like about Bush is the fact that he can play all three positions. He's a three-down linebacker, thrives in space, plays downhill, and he can blitz.
Yeah, and he's a complete linebacker. To me, White's not. Go ahead, Steve.
Does the height bother anybody? 5'11"?
No.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
I mean, White's only 6 foot tall, and everybody loves him. That's a 1-inch difference.
234, but he's got a 4.43 40 time, and he's got a vertical jump of 40 inches. So I guess with that speed and that ability to leap, that's got to make up some for. But you got running backs coming in at 240 pounds, and he's 234. I'd feel if he was a little bit taller. And
remember this, though, Steve. Going to the NFL, they're going to put him on a weightlifting program that he's going to weigh 245, 250 by the time the season starts.
Okay.
Now, whether that'll be naturally or not, that's not the point. He'll just be bigger by the time it gets to the first game of the season. And really, if you're ranking Devin White ahead of him, Devin White is an inch taller and weighs 3 pounds more. So I don't think there's much difference here, and I always want to go with the guy with the instincts, because instincts, to me, playing football, especially defensive football, you got guys that react to what happens to them, and you have guys that can anticipate. If you react, you're already a little bit behind. If you have a guy that can anticipate, you're ahead of the game. That's why I like Bush better. Go ahead.
They say he lacks. I'm sorry, Steve. Go ahead.
I just could say with a 4.43 40 time, there's no tight ends that are going to outrun him.
But the thing you got to realize is this. What was his? You must have the numbers in front of you. What was his 3-cone drill?
3-cone was 6.93.
All right. What was the 3-cone drill for White?
Let me see. Devin White 3-cone drill was 7.07.
All right. So right there, what you just told me.
Faster, yeah.
What you told me is this. The 40 time, I could run a 4 flat. But if I can't turn my hips to run with the wide receiver that runs a 4.5, he's going to beat me. So what that tells me is Bush is a lot better at turning his hips. So when you look at the 3-cone drill, that's huge to me. And we talked about it with DK Metcalf. I don't care about anything. A 40 time, I don't care how high you can jump. What I care about is your hips with a linebacker, with a cornerback, with a safety. That 3-cone drill tells you a lot about their ability to change direction. And with Devin White, I mean, over a 7 is not outstanding, Anthony. But with Devin Bush, under a 7, I think, tells us a lot. And if he's quicker with the hips, plus he has better instincts, to me, there's no way Bush can't be better than White.
Yeah, but they say he struggles to defend the run in the box, and he has that sideline-to-sideline range, but that's big. Don't you want your linebackers, especially if he's going to play in the middle somewhere, to be able to defend the run?
Well, why do they say that he can't defend the run?
Lack of quick trigger between the tackles and inability to work off blocks consistently at the second level.
All right, so that is probably a size thing.
And I'm quoting that.
Yeah, that's probably a size thing. How long are his arms?
Arms 32 inches.
Yeah, so really with a linebacker, you would like 33, 34. But the other thing is this with the instincts, and I can tell you the truth right now, with Bush and White both, I would take either one for the Bengals because they basically have an open space at linebacker right now. Anybody would be better. I really don't think either one of these linebackers is a top 10 player. I just don't, because there are issues with both of them. I'm just saying if you gave me the choice and I had to pick one of the two, I would go with Bush. I think the guy that I think really gets overlooked here, is there anybody you think that is overlooked that could be better than either one of these guys, Anthony? Because both of these guys, I think there are large issues with.
I don't know if there's another linebacker in this draft that I would take in the first round. Maybe Mack Wilson out of Alabama, but outside of White and Bush, does anybody else have a first-round grade? And that's a no.
Yeah, because there's nobody else close. Because Mack Wilson, when you look at him, the thing that I noticed on the film about him is he's hesitant against misdirection, and he's often really late as a run defender. And there's nobody else. I think it's these two guys, and that's it. And the problem is, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I say, is there a Leighton Vander Esch in this draft?
No.
Is there a Darius Leonard in this draft?
Shit, no. And the thing is this, Darius Leonard should have been a first-round draft pick. Anybody that watched his film would have taken him in the first round, but the NFL misses on a lot of guys.
Colts didn't.
But they picked him in the third round, so they passed on him twice.
Yeah. They got a steal with that guy.
I'll tell you, there's one guy that is kind of interesting to me, and that's Jermaine Pratt from North Carolina State. And he is a converted, I think, safety. And I think he's like 6'3", 235, 45 pounds.
6'2", 240.
Yeah, 6'2", 240. He's aggressive. He's a run and chase kind of linebacker. I think he may be the best cover linebacker in the class. The only problem is you got to keep him clean by the defensive line so he has the ability to make plays. So I think he's a guy that if you put him behind a really good defensive line that can help keep a little of the crap off of him, I think eventually he can become a starter for somebody that runs a 4-3. I think he could be a will linebacker for a team like that. Have you watched him at all, Anthony?
I mean, a little bit. Where do you project him going?
I project him. He'll be a third or fourth round pick, but if you wanted somebody that could have an impact like Darius Leonard, I don't think they're there, but I think he's a guy that a couple years from now could pan out to be a guy that could have an impact.
Because there's some red check marks, whether it's football intelligence, being able to shed a block.
Oh, the linebackers all suck here. What I'm saying is this. The reason he's got a lot of those check marks is 2 years ago he was a defensive back. So he was just converted, I think, this year. But I think he's a guy.
Player.
Yeah, he's a project. He's a guy 2 or 3 years from now, if you drafted him, and put it like this, he's such a good athlete. If you draft him in like the fourth round, you're going to get a special team stud. And I think people miss out when you're drafted in the third or fourth round. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for special team studs that have enough playing ability that a couple of years from now, maybe they're more than just a special team stud.
Is this a player that you see New England targeting because of the developmental ability and ability to play special teams?
I think
that's what Belichick likes to do. He likes to keep these players along, and then all of a sudden after being buried on the depth chart and getting only special teams reps, they're a star defender.
Yeah, but see,
I mean,
that's the
that
difference. And that's why the Patriots for 20 years have been the best team or been close to the best team, because they understand. When you get a team like the Cowboys or the Bengals, we'll bring our teams up because I think they have issues drafting sometimes. And I think what they miss is, I think when the Bengals and the Cowboys draft in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds, they're trying to get lucky and find a guy that can help them right away. I think a team like the Patriots are looking for special team guys that they can develop. And the thing about that is this: when you do it that way, and the New York Giants are another team that I think drafts like the Bengals and Cowboys, where they try to fix stuff with the 3rd or 4th round that they have issues with now. And the difference is the Patriots draft for the future. And not just the future, but the Patriots are also the team that can most easily take on injuries and survive it, because they've got all these 3rd through 7th round picks that have been on the roster for 2 or 3 years who are ready to play. And when they need to play, they just step in. And what teams like the Bengals, Giants, and Cowboys more often than not do is they reach on guys. They keep them around for a couple years. Somebody gets hurt, they got to play, and they're not ready because they never were going to be ready. They were just hoping the guy could come in and help right away, where I think the Patriots plan for the future.
Where do you put Pete Carroll and John Schneider out in Seattle? I know nobody compares to New England, but I feel like Seattle's another one of those teams that, hey, we'll just flip talent and,
yeah, but it hasn't worked for them. It hasn't worked for them. They still don't have a tight end after getting rid of Jimmy Graham. Their offensive line has went to crap.
But they're winning.
Yeah, they're winning because they have Russell Wilson.
They're supposed to be rebuilding. Instead, it looks like they're reloading.
But they
had
not.
No business getting playoffs.
This is the thing, though. They had no business making it to playoffs.
And they just traded Frank Clark. We didn't even bring that up yet.
Yeah, and when you look at Seattle, though, they're not a threat to win a Super Bowl. And the Patriots stay a threat to win the Super Bowl. And when I look at what Seattle's done, they have not rebuilt the offensive line. They still have not given Russell Wilson any weapons at wide receiver. They drafted a running back last year, which, I mean, he played well. But to me, if I'm going to put all that money in a quarterback, I'm going to get him some offensive linemen.
I think they are going to get Russell Wilson some help in this draft, considering they have the 2 first-round picks now, getting Kansas City's pick. I think Seattle's in good position. They can get one of those second-round receivers we were talking about yesterday.
Well, yeah, but then again, the offensive line is still not very good. And I still think they were 9-7 last year, win 9 or 10 games. They made it to the playoffs on the back of Russell Wilson. When they got to the playoffs, they were summarily dismissed immediately. And I'm not a huge Pete Carroll fan. He could change that if he could get some weapons and an O-line, because if he upgrades the O-line, then they are a Super Bowl contender. But the difference is this: with the Patriots, their offensive line, the year they lost to Denver in the championship game, was very bad. All right. Now, by the next year, that offensive line was the best in football and won them the Super Bowl. So my difference is this. I think Pete Carroll does a good job of reloading it, but nowhere like the Patriots, because the Patriots are in line. So if they've got a weakness one year, it's a strength the next year. And it really does help having Russell Wilson. I mean, if you put Russell Wilson on the Dallas Cowboys with the talent they have, you'd win the Super Bowl. Or you'd lose to Bill Belichick in a heartbreaking fashion. One of the two.
Oh, Jason Garrett would have made a better play call in that situation.
I know. Jason Garrett's a stud. Jeez. I still don't think it was that terrible a play call, but I just think this. He happened to do it.
When you have Marshawn Lynch?
Hey, I'm telling you this, though. Against any other team in the NFL, that's an easy touchdown pass. Bill Belichick somehow knew what the hell Pete Carroll was thinking and what he was going to do. Against any other team, it's not a bad call. Against Bill Belichick, it is, because the dude's smarter than you, if you know what I mean. But I guarantee you this, if you would have ran that play against any other team in the NFL, that receiver would have popped open for an easy touchdown, and everybody would be sitting here talking about what a genius Pete Carroll was. but Belichick knew it was coming. He put a guy underneath of it. The guy made a great play. That's why Bill Belichick's Bill Belichick. What position were we at? Oh, let's go to edge rusher. Steve likes edge rushers. Who do you think's the best edge rusher in this draft, Anthony? I think this comes between Nick Bosa and Josh Allen.
Yeah, and I think it's close, but I'm going to give the edge slightly to Nick Bosa. His really good first step quickness. The hand technique and length is strong. He can counteract a pass rush. He's flexible. He can react and defend the run.
You there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Steve?
I don't know much about Josh Allen because I don't like Kentucky, so I don't watch Kentucky play. So, he's got good height, 6'4", 262, 4.6 40. Going real slow, 7.15. 10-yard speed. I think the 10-yard speed is interesting for these guys, don't you? 1.61.
Yeah, the 10-yard speed is a much bigger deal than the 40.
40, I agree. For these guys, it's just how quick can they get 10 yards where a lot of quarterbacks drop them back. Apparently he's a lock to be a top 10 pick. But I've not seen Josh Allen play, so I would be just reading off the sources of data that I have. So I really have not seen him play.
All right. Anthony, I'm going to disagree with you. I would take Josh Allen first.
Why?
Because I think he's better than Bosa. I think the thing that sticks out the way that nobody talks about when you watch the film on Bosa, well, number one, he'll have not played in a year, but number two, I don't think he uses really good leverage when he attacks the offensive lineman. And I think what you see is you see him dominate a lot of guys that are not NFL linemen just with his physical ability and his speed. I would like to see the leverage be better. I would like to see him use his hands a little bit better. With Josh Allen, I think he could be inconsistent at times, but I think that's almost every edge pass rusher coming into the NFL gets kind of graded with that. And the big thing about him is he can play against the run, where Bosa, I don't think would be as good against the run, because if you watch Allen, when he could set an edge, and he's strong enough to set that edge, and he has a great ability to shed the blocks. And I think he's one of the most physically gifted players here. He rushes the passer with great impact. And the other thing about him is this: he's not just an edge rusher. This is a dude that can drop into coverage. If I was going to get a linebacker and I was the Bengals, I would try to trade up and get this guy because I think he is special. I think Bosa will be a very good player, but I think that when you look at him, Allen's ability to defend the pass, his ability to set the edge on the run and to be able to stop the run, I think makes him the better player.
I'm reading his dossier.
I love that. Shit, it makes us sound more important, Anthony, because Steve's reading dossiers.
Yeah, it does.
You know what? We're going to go bust up I think, an opioid ring after this, too, because Steve's been reading a lot of dossiers. So,
been reading dossiers, yeah. What I like about him, one of the stats that they bring up here in his dossier is 4 passes batted. And I think at 6'4", he's got a vertical. They don't have his vertical on here. How about that?
Who are you talking about? Are you talking about Allen or Bosa?
Yeah, Allen. Yeah. But 4 passes batted in one season. That's pretty good in college. And you got guys like Drew Brees going to throw over him if he drops into coverage or something like that. So I'm reading the dossier on both him and Bosa, and I kind of agree with you, Mike. I kind of like Josh Allen better.
The thing that stands out to me is this: with Allen, Anthony, you get an edge rusher that can actually play outside linebacker. With Bosa, you just get an edge rusher.
Yeah, so you think Allen's a more complete player?
Yeah, I think Allen is the kind of guy, he can play outside linebacker, he can play defensive end, he can do whatever you need him to do. If you look
you're bringing Bosa in the rush to passer, though, and that's what I think he does better than Allen. He's really good with his fundamentals. He has depth and layers to how he gets to the quarterback. No?
You can't have depth to your fundamentals when you don't always have good leverage. I mean, if I'm going to draft a guy in the first 5 picks and I question his leverage, I'm not going to draft him in the first 5 picks. I mean, he has a great combination of strength and speed, which gives him a great upfield burst. You know, the excellent first step puts you in a good position in case they run. I think he's extremely productive. But when I look at him, the leverage thing bothers me a little bit. And I think he's a good technical player. But, I mean, also you've got the injury which repaired a core muscle, which is a huge thing. He hasn't played in a year. He's had a few injury problems before. Yeah, he's had a few injury problems before. And I think I think with that lack of playing last year, he may need a little bit more time to adjust to the NFL game due to the lack of playing time last year. And I think the leverage thing, put it like this, there are more red flags to me with Bosa. And there aren't many. I think he's going to be a hell of a player than there is with Allen.
Is there any concern for the fact that he hadn't played for a year?
Yeah, that's what I just said for 2 minutes, Steve.
Yeah, I know.
Quit reading your freaking dossier and pay attention.
Here's the interesting thing about Bosa, and going down and looking at the dossiers of all the group pass rushers. He's kind of got the worst statistics of all of them. 3 cone of 7.1, 40 time of only 7.78.
What's the 3 cone on Allen?
3 cone on Allen is 7.15.
They're the same then.
Then they're the same there. But he's got a little bit faster 10-yard rush too.
How much does the fact that his brother plays and succeeds in the NFL play a role into Nick's draft stock?
Well, see, I think Nick's dad played in the NFL too. Because I think his dad is John Bosa, who played for the Miami Dolphins.
I think you're right.
Now, the question there is this, though. Actually, with me, it might scare me away more. Because usually both brothers aren't going to be studs. I mean, it does happen from time to time. Peyton and Eli did all right. But...
Look at J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt and his brother.
His brother's a Pittsburgh Steeler. They don't count.
Here. And then there's the fullback. Who plays somewhere.
Yeah, and actually, it doesn't play into me at all. I don't really care what his brother or his mom or his dad or anybody else did. I think he's going to be a hell of a player. He's definitely worth a top 5, top 10 pick. I just like Josh Allen better. I mean, I think if you look at the production, last year Josh Allen's covering the pass, but he's also sacking the quarterback 17 times in like 12 games. And that's in the SEC, which they've got some decent offensive linemen there. Not like the NFL, but
where does Montez Sweat fit into all this?
Montez Sweat?
Sweat.
Your eyesight's going in it, Steve. You're getting older.
Yeah,
you need to get some glasses. Actually,
it takes a lot to pronounce dossier.
Yeah, he can't say sweet, but he can say dossier 78 times. I think it was Sweat. I think this is a dude to me that looks like he's a natural pass rusher. I think he had like 24 sacks in 2 years. He got kicked out of Michigan State, but that doesn't mean nothing. I've coached a lot of guys that got kicked out of Michigan State, and usually I kicked them off my team too, so I guess D'Antonio was usually right. But I think when you look at him, he's got great change of direction. He's got good hands. I think he's the fastest edge rusher in this draft. I think the concerns with him is he might be a little light. But, of course, strength conditioning program and some Diana Bowl or something, he'll get bigger, and that shouldn't be a problem. And I know that he has a pre-existing heart condition, too, that was detected during the scouting combine. I don't think that'll affect his draft status, but a team or two may shy away. When I look at him, I think this kid is a top 10 talent because I think he's the most natural pass rusher here, and I think he's the fastest edge rusher here. It's just whether he has any counter moves. And what I mean by a counter move is if you're going up against an offensive tackle who's got a really good kick step, you can be the fastest edge rusher in the world. He's just going to kind of wash you out. So the question with Montez Sweat to me, I'll say Sweet just so I'm even with Steve, but Montez Sweat, the big thing to me is when he starts to go upfield, all right, when you get to that second step, you want to attack the outside shoulder of the offensive tackle. Now, if you get to the second step and you still can't reach that, he's got to have the ability, say if he's rushing from the right, to take his left hand, hit that dude in the chest, and then rip under him to go inside. That's what I mean by a counter move. And that's something that I haven't seen a lot with him. He's more of a guy that just kind of gets the edge, runs the hoop, and gets around to the quarterback. If he has a counter move where he can hit and rip under real quick, or he can reach his left hand to the outside left shoulder of the left tackle and then just spin to get back inside. If he has any kind of counter moves like that, I think it's possible he could be just as good as Bosa.
Yeah, Sweat set a record for.
Is it Sweet or Sweat? You see,
Sweat.
Steve's got me confused. I knew who the hell this was before Steve started going on.
Sweet
it must be that
S-W-E-E-T.
damn dossier.
This is S-W-E-A-T.
There's going to be.
Here's what I think. 6'6" with what's his vertical? A 36-inch vertical. If he's edge rushing from the outside coming out and gets his hand up, I mean, he's going to alter quarterback's throws. They're going to have to throw over him because that guy can get 6'6" with a 36-inch vertical jump. That guy can get 10 foot tall real quick.
Yeah, but he can't if the offensive tackle actually blocks him. And see, that's the problem. If you have an offensive tackle, and I mean, this is any offensive tackle I've ever had, and I've had a lot, and I've coached a lot. As soon as this dude starts to raise up, you just punch him in the chest, and he's not 6'6" anymore, and he can't put his hands up. But the problem is, to me, that's a lost art in the NFL.
His 10-yard speed is 1.55, so he's fast. He's quick. This guy we projected as a top 20 pick, so he may not be a sleeper.
I think there's a lot of variance about where he's going to go because he's projected as high as pick 3 or 4, and he could also fall out of the first round completely. I know a lot of teams or a handful of teams have taken him off their board completely. He's going to be one of those players that if he starts to fall, we are going to see a team trade up to get him.
And we're going to see a team get real lucky, I think, in the end. What's your take on Rashawn Gary, Anthony?
Gary's another one of those players that I am seeing him go all over the first round.
Yeah, I've seen him as high as like 6, and I've seen him as low as the second round.
A few knocks on him are his feet, his footwork.
There's a lot of knocks on him. I think he's a complete bust.
He has a shoulder
whoever
injury from
picks
last
him.
year.
So, yeah. I think if he goes in the first round, that team will regret it, and their fans will hate them forever. Because he's a guy that we talked about. I forget which guy we talked about earlier, but he pretty much prefers to just run at alignment and rely on his brute strength. He bull rushes. He has no diversity in his moves. His hands and his feet do not work together. And if your hands and your feet don't work together, you're not going to be very good with your hands. And I think this kid will be a gigantic bust before this is over with. But that's just my opinion. It could be wrong. But it won't be. All right, next up, let's talk about safeties. To me, I think this is a group, while not deep, Anthony, I really like the top 2 safeties here. I don't like any safety I saw after the top 2. Who are your top 2 safeties?
For me, it's Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Nasir Adderley.
Really? Chauncey Gardner?
No? What? What do you put Abrams ahead?
Okay, do this. He can't tackle. And he'll look like he can tackle in 2018. But the key here is to always watch their film from the year before. In 2017, they lined him up in space as a safety, which means, he was 5, 7, 10, even sometimes 12 yards off the ball. And he was horrible at tackling. Last year, the tackling cleaned up. But what Florida did with him is they moved him up on the line of scrimmage all the time, so there wasn't as much space. I think I have a huge question on whether he could tackle in space or not. And I think that he looked better as a tackler last year because they walked him up on a line of scrimmage, or he was only 3 to 5 yards off instead of being 7 to 12 yards off. And I think that really helped him with his tackling. And if he had problem tackling in college, he's really going to have a problem when he's going up against an Ezekiel Elliott or a Joe Mixon or anybody there. That worries me about him. Plus, I just think when you watch him outside of the tackling issues, I just think there's a lot of questions with him. I don't think he's got the greatest hips in the world. I have him ranked as the third best safety, but I just, to me, he's a late second to late third round pick.
Where do you see any of these safeties going?
Actually, I think this. I think Adderley is good enough. He could be a first round pick. I mean, his ball skills, I think, would make him so good. And I think he had 9 picks last year. And I know the question with him is going to be, but he played at Delaware. But it doesn't matter. He has the most consistent, the best film of any safety here. From what I saw, I could not find any weakness. You know, there was a small weakness that stuck out to me, possibly with his ability to cover a slot receiver, which I think he struggled at the Senior Bowl. But he has the best hips in this draft of any DB. And a DB with smooth hips, I mean, ain't nothing better than that. And when I look at his ball skills to go with it, I think Nasir Adderley is by far and away the best guy. And the guy I would want on my team is Darnell Savage. Because, number one, his name is awesome. But number two, he is the meanest son of a bitch in this draft when he plays. I mean, he's aggressive. He's uber competitive. I mean, his mentality can work against him at times. You know, he makes great downhill plays, and then he'll slip up when he gets caught peeking. But I really like, and we talked about this with Quentin Nelson yesterday, how mean he was. This is the guy this year that sticks out to me as being the meanest guy here. Have you watched anything on Savage?
Not a lot on Savage, no. The safeties I watched the most on were Adderley, Abram, and Johnson.
Yeah, but go watch Savage a little bit because he just destroys stuff, and I love that. And
I like Gardner's versatility. I think he's one of the more versatile defensive backs in this draft.
Who was that?
I'm back on Gardner Johnson.
Yeah, okay. He can't tackle. If he could tackle, I would go with you because he looks like a good player other than that. And I still think he's a good second-round pick. But I really, if you go watch just a Florida game film from 2017 and watch the way they lined him up compared to the way they lined him up in 2018. And I think the coaches there did a really good job of covering up what his deficiencies are.
But that's what a good coach will do in the NFL. I mean, Chauncey Gardner, he can play safety or corner. And he can also come up playing the slot.
You can't cover up somebody that can't tackle in the NFL unless they're Deion Sanders.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to cover him up when you're playing Ole Miss and Mississippi State. The other thing about Savage is I think Savage is a dude that can start earlier in his career. And the thing about Savage, if you play him correctly and you play a lot of robber coverages with him early in his career, I think he'll develop into one of the top safeties in the NFL. I like Savage because he's got an awesome name and he's mean as hell.
It's funny, too, Mike. You talk about being mean as hell. His dossier says that the NFL teams love his character.
Yeah, but he's mean as hell. Yeah, I mean, there's a difference there. Yeah. I mean, he will hit you.
Yeah. Not going to be a mental problem for anybody that takes him, that's for sure.
No. Well, not until he knocks himself out 7 times in 2 years like Vontez Burfict did. Then he could be. All right, let's go.
Or Bob Sanders.
We'll wrap it up with cornerback. And who do you like here, Anthony? I know we're going to disagree because we disagree on everything, but who do you like?
At cornerback, I mean, there's really 2 that stand out to me is Byron Murphy and Greedy Williams.
Oh, we're on the same page here then.
And I'm giving the slight edge to Murphy, I think. And I know
we agree again.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing that stuck out to me with Murphy watching these film is I think his technique is better than anybody in this draft, cornerback-wise. He is really good at taking advantage of mistakes that opposing quarterbacks make. He picked off 4 passes, defended 13, but the thing that stands out to me there is this. I think everybody in Washington secondary will probably end up playing in the NFL, so they had to kind of split that up. But I think the thing that separates him from Greedy Williams to me is this. I think he has as good instincts and feel for the game as any cornerback you'll find. I know the lack of size and blazing speed scares some people away, but I think his intangibles here are off the charts, and that's why I like him better than Williams.
Yeah, and I know it's a long shot. They say Murphy has the upside, depending on what team drafts him, to be worth a top 10 pick, and that's saying a lot with how deep this draft is at edge or the interior defensive line. Yeah,
and I think Greedy Williams has fallen on a lot of draft boards, and that might be a guy you can get late second or late first all the way up to mid-second now for some reason. But I don't think he should be falling because I think by far and away he is the second best guy here. He plays with aggression, which I love. He's a ball hawking corner. Wherever the ball is, he is. And the thing that stands out to me about Williams, and this is why I had Murphy and Williams so close. Murphy, to me, is like the smartest guy out here. He's got the best hips. His technique is impeccable. And then when I look at Williams, he's what I like. And this may not make any sense, but if I had to pick one of these corners, I think Murphy is better, but I would take Greedy Williams because when I watched him, the thing he brings to your team is I think he brings a ton of swagger. I think he brings confidence to the defensive backfield. And I think he's going to be a shutdown corner. I think Murphy's going to be a shutdown corner. I would pick Williams because I am probably a more aggressive coach than I am a laid-back one. If I'm going to play mainly man, I'm going to pick Greedy Williams. If I'm going to play mainly zone or a lot of zone, I'm going to go with Byron Murphy.
Yeah, I mean, Williams allowed the lowest catch rate amongst SEC cornerbacks last year. They say he doesn't tackle so well because of his slenderish frame. He's 6'2", 185. But if you're drafting him to be your top cornerback, you want him to be able to be stuck on coverage.
Yeah, that's not like a safety. I'm fine with a corner that may have trouble tackling. With a safety, I want a safety that'll knock somebody out.
A safety needs to be a banger to me.
Yeah, and that's why I like Savage.
Like Ed Reed. They don't make Ed Reeds anymore.
I think they might with the Savage kid. I don't think he's going to be as good as Ed Reed, but he will go knock your, something in the dirt.
Remember Roy Williams from Dallas talk about a banger? He couldn't cover it all, but he was like a linebacker.
Oh, dude. Ronnie Lott, David Fulcher, hell, who were the two? Dennis Smith, Steve Atwater. I mean, they used to be all over the place. But now people have realized using your head to knock people out is not a great thing to do sometimes. Steve, what do you think about the corners?
I pretty much just agree with what you guys say. I mean, I would just be repeating it. So I agree with your assessment on, the banging and the speed. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about these guys well enough to pick one over the other. They're both projected in the first round. So then it seems to fall off from there. But, yeah.
All right. Now, when I look at this,
I wouldn't be adding anything new.
A guy who I think, Anthony, could surprise some people and turn out to be a lot better player than what they think is Justin Lane from Michigan State. He's undersized, but I think he is one of the best man defenders in this draft. He has a nose for the ball, and his route recognition is really good. I think against the run, he will have some difficulties until he gets bigger. But I think Lane's a kid with a lot of upside that I think people are really missing on here.
Yeah, they say he needs to work on his zone coverage a little bit.
Yeah,
but he's not going to be he's not projected to be a day 1 or 2 pick. He's probably going to be somewhere 3rd, 4th round, no?
Yeah. Well,
yeah, and Mike, they got him listed at 6'1", 192. That doesn't seem undersized for a cornerback.
I'm getting 6'3", 185.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got 6'1", 192 actually.
Yeah, he's undersized. I like my quarters 6'6". Is there anybody else here, quarterback-wise, that you feel good to talk about? Anthony? Anybody else that sticks out to you?
Not really. What about, DeAndre Baker? I've seen his name, creep into some first-round mocks, but I think he's more or less a day 2 pick.
I think with Baker, I think he has great instincts.
Speed's an issue.
Yeah, he's not a spectacular athlete like a guy in the first round is going to be. But I think his instincts are as good as anybody, maybe better than anybody's in here. I think that he fits into a predominantly zone scheme where his intelligence would be able to use to the utmost. And I think as he develops, he could be a decent man defender, but his strength lies in being able to play zone. So if you're a team that is mainly a zone team, I think DeAndre Baker would be worth a second-round pick. Or even if you were desperate and needed a corner and you're mainly zone, I think you could get away with picking him late in the first round and be all right.
What about anything on Julian Love?
Actually, I like Julian Love. Julian Love, the thing that stands out to me is I think that he is a gamer, which means I would almost guarantee you, I don't know this, I have nobody that's told me this, but I'm guessing he is like one of those guys that's like an average practice player, but when the lights come on and the game's played, I think Julian Love, will eventually be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Or cornerback in the NFL. I think he probably goes somewhere between late second, late third, Anthony.
Probably more into day 3.
But see, the thing you got to realize is this. Normally, if you had a deep cornerback draft, yeah. But it's possible that we could see guys that are drafted higher than what they should be just because teams might need corners, and there aren't that many really good ones out there. So what you could have is you could have a team that has a needed corner. You know, you got those first 2 guys gone in the first round. You get to the second round, I think that's what a guy like Love or Lane could pop up and maybe even be a late second-round pick because of something like that.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of the skill position players go on day 2.
Yeah, I think the big question to me is when does the run on wide receivers start?
We could probably see, you could make the case for 5 going in round 1. As crazy as that sounds.
And I could make the case that
will still be in round 2.
Yeah, but the value is always in round 2 or 3 with the wide receivers. There's no wide receiver to me that stands out as being a Julio Jones or an Odell Beckham or an A.J. Green. So when a guy is not like that, I don't see the need to draft him in the first round because I still think, when in doubt, take an offensive lineman, a defensive lineman, or a linebacker. But, all right, guys. We got anything else, Steve?
We're not going to cover punters and kickers?
Nobody cares about punters and kickers. Do you care about punters and kickers, Anthony?
Only when I have money on the game.
Yep. Only when he costs the Cowboys a playoff game.
Dallas usually has pretty good kickers, actually.
Yeah, it's because you don't have to worry about losing a playoff game. I'm just kidding. All right.
Wow.
Tomorrow we will be back at noon, and Anthony will have some rumors. I'm sure by then we'll look at the needs for each team headed into tomorrow night's draft. And then tomorrow night, a little bit before 8 o'clock Eastern, you can hear the Grueling Truth NFL Draft Show. It'll be live on thegruelingtruth.com. It'll be live on Spreaker. It'll be live on Zeno Live Radio. We'll be live on the new app that just came out for The Grueling Truth, which you can get on iTunes. Anthony, any final words of wisdom before we wrap it up?
No, I'm excited to see what's going to happen between now and tomorrow night. We've already seen Ben Roethlisberger get an extension, the Frank Clark deal, Marshawn Lynch retire, Jonathan Stewart retire. This is going to be a busy 24, 36 hours.
Yep. Steve, you ready to roll tomorrow night?
Yeah, ready to roll. And if we're wrapping up, who's sponsoring the program tomorrow night?
The Love Harder Project, which is run by Tim Flannery, former San Diego Padre. I think he was a second baseman, wasn't he? But he also was the third base coach for the Giants. And we will have Tim on the show here in the next couple weeks. And just a warning for you, Steve. Don't bring up your ring because he's got 3 World Series rings.
I haven't talked about my ring in probably 2 weeks. You guys talk about it now.
Well, we haven't had a new person for you to talk to it about, though. We already know about it. We all have big glossy pictures on our phones for it.
Oh, I'm a new and improved me. I'm more humble now.
Oh, hell. I don't like humble Steve. Humble Steve would be boring, don't you think, Anthony?
Yeah.
Talk some
well,
shit, Steve.
our sponsors are not too fond of rambunctious.
That's only when you make fun of the sponsors, Steve. You can make fun of anybody else you want.
I did not make fun of MyBookie AG.
MyBookie Buddy, you called them.
Well,
And Sierra just sent me a thumbs up when I made that comment. She's the one from MyBookie.ag. So she listens to the show every day just to keep an eye on you.
It was not.
I know. Nobody cares anymore. Everything's great. Yeah, so. All right, guys. Make sure you check out our app on Xeno Live Radio, though. And make sure you're back with me and Bobby Sheridan in about an hour for the Sheridan Report. Tonight at 7 o'clock, we'll have a Cincinnati Bengals draft preview show with myself and former Cincinnati Bengal linebacker, Super Bowl 23, Joe Kelly. Tonight at 11, me and Jeremiah will be back with the Inside Boxing Daily Show. Me and Steve are back tomorrow at noon with Anthony to talk a little NFL draft.
And Alex Gray and I will be doing a NASCAR program tonight, reviewing Richmond, the rules changes, and talking about Talladega, which is the most exciting race on the schedule.
Yeah, and I cannot wait to see if Ricky Bobby can win there again.
Hey, if you ain't first, you're last. Or as Kurt Busch says, second place is just the first loser.
Yeah, same thing. I think Ricky Bobby said that too. Or his buddy, what was it, Dale or something? The little curly-haired guy that looked like he had pubes on top of his head with the mustache. What was his name?
Shake and Bake.
Shake and Bake, baby. Maybe we should have called this show Shake and Bake, Steve. Shake and Bake with Mike and Steve. All right.
Yeah, maybe we should call the NASCAR show Shake and Bake.
There you go. That's not a bad idea. Talk to Alex about it. See what you guys think.
Talk to Alex about that.
I like that. Shake and Bake.
Shake and Bake, the NASCAR show.
All right, guys. We're going to wrap it up. I will be back in about an hour with Bobby Sheridan for the Sheridan Report. So for now, we're going to let you go. Remember, you can hear all of our shows on thegruelingtruth.com, on Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, Xeno Live Radio, iTunes, TuneIn, over 200 places you can find it. So wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Anthony Cervino, Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.